first sight of Shimla isn't a promising one, you're not alone in that. From the ridge across it, the erstwhile queen of the hills looks more than a little bit tatty around the edges. Overcrowded, overbuilt, overpainted too. But as with all places with real history behind it, it's once you head in, once you begin peeling away the layers, that the real beauty of this hill station begins to reveal itself. It's not just that it's greener than the first look would have you believe. It's not just those winding cobble lanes. It's in the way its amazing past lives on and is celebrated no matter what changes time has wrought. It's in the gorgeous old buildings like grand old ladies that have weathered the storms of time. It's in the vistas so spectacular that for a minute you wonder why you've chosen city life. And more often than not, it's in the people who carry a sense of pride that feels very personal. I think it's because Shimla doesn't just have a past, it has history behind it. History that's weighty, important, and my high school teachers will be amazed I said this, interesting. To get inside, look no further than the delightful Raja Basin, historian, author, and quite the best host you could hope to have.
It's considered to be one of the world's most densely populated hill slopes,
Right.
with only Caracas and La Paz in South America with a comparable density of population.
And how did it come to be so crowded? For that, we need to go back a ways.
It's 1864 when Shimla officially became the summer capital.
Right.
But for all practical purposes, this was the real capital of India. So you had a fifth of the human race being governed out of Shimla for the better part of every year. This about half a dozen major political decisions which have been taken in Shimla, starting with the declaration of the First Afghan War in 1858, the Durand Line that marked out the borders between India and Afghanistan. The Mesopotamian campaign was all chalked out in Shimla, and the borders of what are now India and Pakistan were drawn up in this town.
It's pretty compelling stuff, a sentiment that applies to much else here too, including happily food. Yes, Raja is now changing gears and taking me to the mall to get my first taste of the city. This is going to be good.
Now what has happened is, say, that mix of Indian and English, that very distinctive Anglo-Indian cuisine, mulligatawny soup, trifle pudding, that has almost faded.
Right.
And what has now entered is distinctly Indian, fairly distinctly Himachali, and of course standard North Indian, but something which is very distinctive, which is very, very much of this town, is, say, this pickle shop, Thakur Bharata.
Yes, pickle at a local institution. It may look basic, but that's actually the point. This is a place with traditions with decades on decades behind them.
मेरे पिताजी ने ये दुकान शुरू की थी 3 मई सन 1925 को, तो हम उन्हीं की ट्रेडिशन पे वही चीज़ें रख रहे हैं। अचार, मुरब्बे, ये हमारे अपने मैन्युफैक्चर्ड हैं।
So, out of vats and jars, probably as old as the store itself, he puts together a selection just for us. Gobi pickle, yes please. Mushroom pickle, don't mind if I do.
Local stuff. Yeah. And they're probably just straight out of the market.
The gobi is good. This is good pickle. There's the signature stuffed red chili achar, thick, robust, and happily not too hot. There really is something about the pickles up here in Himachal, and oh yes, about the murabba too.
This is one of the specialties of this shop, the amle ka murabba, the Indian gooseberries, and you've taken your day's dose of vitamin C.
This is true. Well, I'm sold. This really is gold. Probably best not to say or show how much I packed away for later consumption. Instead, I will divert you by introducing you to the joys of this particular stretch of Shimla, because you see, this is where the party's at. It's packed with very enthusiastic visitors, doing everything from grabbing bites to taking rides to soaking in the truly spectacular views flanking it. I was not ready to jump in. Instead, we skirted our way through with the single-minded focus of a heat-seeking missile. Happily, target here was easily found.
Aneesha, what we are now walking through is the Lakkad Bazaar, one of the side bazaars of Shimla. And one of the rather popular food shops here is the Sita Ram and Son.
You're telling me in Shimla, one of the most popular things is chola bhatura.
Absolutely.
Delhi style chola bhatura.
Shimla style chola bhatura.
Excellent, okay. What is the difference?
Try it.
Okay,
And
done.
you figure it.
There it is, piping hot, looking good and smelling even better.
There is a difference. There's sort of a more, there's a blunter, hotter taste to this one than the Delhi one.
It's a bit of a touch of a tangy thing with the chutneys.
Very good. And again, like, perfect place to have it, right?
Absolutely. You're lucky today because otherwise the rush is about 6 deep hanging around his shop to try and get a helping.
Good on Sitaram.
And good on us. This is the joy of hidden corners of the country, bites that are familiar but tweaked just enough to keep things interesting. And it seemed we weren't close to done yet.
To Trishul, which is one of the oldest pastry shops in town.
Right. And you can't come to a hill station without having...
Absolutely.
Ah yes, a pastry shop. Trishul, full of counters, full of quintessential hillside confectionery. By which I mean stiff, almost solid whipped cream, heavy hands with icing sugar, a complete absence of flaky, buttery goodness. I can't wait. This is, you see, also the taste of my childhood. So what should I start with? The eclair maybe, which actually is pretty good. Oh, but then cream puffs. I last had them here on a day trip from my boarding school. I thought they were delicious. Things change.
It has been about 20 years since I've had one of these, and while it is actually considerably better than I remember, I suspect it's going to be about 20 more years before I have another.
And then another local delicacy.
Pune roji bande.
हाँ.
Did he say spoonies? Evidently so.
ये तो सिर्फ त्रिशूल में मिलता है, हम ही बनाते हैं. इसमें ये मुराइंग है और सेंटर में चॉकलेट है. That's just like spoon. Its name is spoonies.
Alright, I'll bite with enthusiasm. And that is quite something.
Good meringue, who'd have thunk?
It's crisp, flaky.
I was suspicious, I will admit.
So happy to be proven wrong. Now a pick-me-up's in order, and so I'm taken to another institution here. The coffee house. It's old, it's dim, it's not terribly fussy, and it is packed. We squeeze our way in, find the perfect corner, and then I'm introduced to the two things that I'm told are largely responsible for the crush. First up, and as expected, the coffee. Wouldn't be much of a coffee house otherwise.
Indian coffee house, it's almost like a landmark of this town. Foods, actually some things are very good, like the coffee for example. Earthy, strong, distinctive. It is a very, very Indian coffee. It's perhaps the most Indian of coffees which you could ever find anywhere.
Right. It is that. But here is the other thing they're famous for, and would you believe it? Strawberry jelly and cream. Yes, icy cold, filled with shards of ice, and really quite delicious for it. Really.
And I actually am quite enjoying the ice crystals inside.
I probably shouldn't, but they're really working too.
When we were kids and we'd come back after ice skating, we'd have breakfast here. And the fires would be going in the fireplaces. Snow outside, and one of those memories which is parked somewhere at the back, really treasured.
Well, he's given me more than a few to treasure myself, and so as I have to part ways with my wonderful host, true to form, he waves me off while pointing me in yet another direction. And so, after a quick meander, I found myself outside the Himachal Tourism Holiday Home. I know, the sort of place one usually avoids like the plague, but here I am told is an exception. Inside the restaurant, I meet Chef Nandlal Sharma, who's going to be introducing me to the many joys of Himachali food. And so, the first course comes, a bowl of chole, their local curd-based soup, light and lovely enough that I could drink a bucket. Just as well I did it though, because then came their bread, and very special bread it is too.
This is siddu. This is steamed one, and the stuffing is poppy seed mixed with the ginger, green chilies, and coriander. Little bit spices.
And yes, there's only one way to eat it.
Okay, this actually might be some of the best bread I think I've ever had. And if you're wondering why, let me break it down for you. Steamed bun, awesome, stuffed with this incredibly potent, wonderfully fragrant poppy seed filling, and then, as you are expected to do, you're supposed to eat it slathered in ghee.
And then the rest, enough to make your head spin. What scent is it then? The fact that practically every dish here uses curd as its base, but not one plate tastes like the one before. In the rongi gobi, for example, with black-eyed peas, it tastes robust, rich, laden with spice. In the sepu vadi, the spinach that the gravy is laced with dominates, though happily not the vadi itself. And as for the chana madra, there's a hint of tart, but more the hearty. I have never seen dahi take so many forms at a single setting, and the bonus is it's not always accessible fare.
Himachali food is not available everywhere.
Yeah.
It is known, you can't get it in any dhaba or anywhere in the restaurant. They used to prepare it only in the occasionally, like marriages, dham, and when some regional function and all.
I hadn't mentioned the katta meetha kaddu earlier, but you can forgive me because while that is delicious, it was outdone completely by the star of the show, the cha mutton. Mutton named for the chas or buttermilk it was traditionally marinated. This one uses curd and makes it magnificent.
Once again, this meat is just amazing, and the meat itself is tender and melting and gorgeous, but the gravy made of curd has basically picked up the flavor of this burnt chili and run with it. This is glorious, really, really glorious.
The chicken anardana, as the name suggests, is a wonderfully chatpati, positively acharish plate. It's the kind that works wonderfully as a main, but you could probably chop up fine and use as a side as well. It's absurdly Moorish, but not more than the lingru, a plate that's not just a speciality, it's so seasonal, I'm lucky to get it.
This is called a wild fern, wild asparagus. We pick it up from the nearby rivers and all. We get it in this, I think May, June, July only.
Yeah.
The ancient times, they used to sit in a row, and they use pattals.
Okay.
It is made of a big leaves.
Pattals or plates, I'll take food like this any way I can get it. Such potent, perfect for the mountain taste. I would have babbled on more, but then out came this dessert. Kheer made marvelous with amaranth. It adds incredible depth and extraordinary nuttiness, and I suspect I'm going to need a lot more time with it. So I'll see you after the break.